Don't pay more in taxes than you're legally obliged to. This is Friends Talk Financial Planning. I'm Bridget Sullivan Ramel, and I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And Bridget, taxes are one of the biggest expenses that most people have when you look at what they pay. And yet we find so many people, I know I do in my practice, that they leave money on the table. They're wasting money on taxes that they don't need to pay. And this is a great timely topic to talk about this. Is that what you see in your practice?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what happens is that people don't want to pay more taxes than they're obliged to. But then when actually encountering a tax return, they feel a lot of different things and they don't want to look at it. So they might feel inadequate because the income is lower than they think it should be, or they might feel confused because, geez, I look at a tax return and all the language on it, and I'm pretty confused. And like, how does
Right,
this all work?
right.
So, and I've been doing taxes for almost 25 years. So
If it
it's,
if it
it's an
freaks you out, right?
understandable
Yeah.
confusion. Yeah. And so I think that it makes people avoid actually what our number one tip is. So, John, why don't you start talking about that?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for sharing that here as a CPA with 25 years of experience. It's like, of course, there's 9 million numbers on 2 pages. What do you want, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just such an interesting thing that uh, and the other thing that I thought of, we look at tax returns for all of our clients, and the first one or two, it's sort of like, oh, there's all these numbers, and then I
Right.
suspect for you too, like after you've done your 25th one, you kind of go like, oh, you get in a rhythm.
Yeah.
Well, most people they see their
They,
tax return, right?
yeah.
It's all brand new for them, so
Right.
that's part of it. Like it's totally natural. And I'll tell you, there's one thing that I think is really like the one critical trick or tip, and it's so basic, like so many
Right.
things that are effective, is just simply looking and comparing last year's return to this year's return
Yep.
and just look at the numbers. And you don't even need to know like where those numbers came from necessarily, right? I
Right.
mean, if there's a problem, we need to dig into it. But when a person takes a look at it and say, listen, on line 3, last year was this year is that, and to think about, oh, were there any changes? And just in big picture, that one line is for wages. Did our income change? Another line is for capital gains. Did we sell any investments? And just to look at those, and you don't even need to dig into it other than to say, oh yeah, that's right. We changed jobs last year, and so we should expect to see a change in income. Or we had a child, and so we should see a
Child.
different child, right? I mean, just these really basic, how do the numbers look? Did we get a raise? Did we, and to say, oh yeah, this number matches up with that number, and if it doesn't match up, yep, that makes sense. And it's amazing to me, and I assume you see the same things, Bridget, but that folks, the vast majority of folks don't review their taxes themselves, and their tax preparers don't review it either. To me, it just seems so basic. What did you have last year versus what did you have this year? If there's differences, does that resonate? And we see even the pros that they don't go through it and just at least know and have some control. And it sounds so simple, and it is, but golly, just looking and asking, hey, these numbers are different, and ask your tax person, well, why does
What's
that
going
make
on?
sense?
Yeah.
And maybe then you need to dig into the third line on schedule C, goes over line 42B, and look at it. But you don't have to get there. Just looking at the numbers, and it seems so basic. And golly, there's, I mean, hundreds if not thousands of dollars on a regular basis that are missed on those things, and causes people to pay taxes they don't actually owe.
Right. And the IRS is pretty good about notifying you if they think you owe them money. But if
Yeah,
the error is in your favor, they sometimes do notify you, but it's a lot less likely. They're expecting
that's
you
right.
to be on top of that. So it's important to take a look. I recently just had a bank make sure your bank account is right,
Yeah.
and there's a couple of other tips that come into play too that I would say to particularly look for if you've got kids now and it depends on what income level you are at, but there's a many people can get a $2,000 tax credit for each child. So that's a lot of money, and make sure you got that. And then this year, right now, we're filming this in 2021. And so we've had rebate checks go out
Yeah,
in 2020. And some people didn't get rebate checks, but they should have gotten a
but they
rebate
should
check.
have. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so if you're not high income, and so you think, maybe I should have gotten a rebate check. Then you should be getting more money on your taxes. And there's a line in that one you can probably figure out where that is, recovery rebate. So you can take a look at that and make sure there's a number there,
Yeah.
because that's the part where you're getting more money back.
That's the thing, right? I love what you said. It's not run the calculation and figure it out. It's, is
Yeah.
there a number there?
Right.
And if there's not a number there, then take a look and say, oh, does it make sense that there's not a number there?
Right.
And if not, right, and those are the things that simple, basic things. But when a tax person, we were just talking this morning, when a tax professional is doing hundreds of
Right.
returns a year, right, there's just limited time for that person, right? And so it is up to you as an individual, right, for me to look at my tax return and to say, oh, is there a number
Mhm.
in that tax rebate section, and should there be those sort of
Right.
things? And that's great. Like so many things, basic, right? It's not complicated. You don't need to dig in. You don't need to be a tax expert by any stretch, but just looking at that's going to put you in a position of power when you get your taxes done every spring.
Yeah, and the other thing I would, as a somebody who does some taxes, I would say is if you do find something that is you think you've got questions on, be patient with your tax preparer,
Yeah.
because it's kind of a production line, and so they're really trying to get a lot of things done at the same time. And so anytime that there's something incorrect, you can always change it. So you can file an amended return, and you can do that up to 3 years after the due date of the return and get more money back. So you may feel outraged, ripped off, ignored, or whatever, but it's like, don't just make sure that you put it on your list to take care of and ask questions about, and realize where the other person is coming from if you're asking them these questions in the middle of March
Yeah, that's
or
right.
early April.
Focus on the results, right? What are you
Yeah,
trying to accomplish with
exactly.
things? So, well, great. I think that's a great place to wrap up this episode. And as always, remember to hit the subscribe button. That
Yeah.
if this interesting information and valuable, the more subscribers we have, the more our message gets out and helps other people. And then Bridget and I are also members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners that do tax focused comprehensive financial planning. And if you're interested in learning more about how people that think like us can help you, visit their website at acplanners.org.
All
All right.
right.
Until
With
next time,
that,
Bridget.
let's wrap it up.